When our stories change, we change. And really, all of our stories are impacting each other's stories. So as we can become more conscious about that and support that journey of our stories unfolding with one another, I feel like then it helps us to go through transitions, go through life's challenges in a way that I can keep improving myself and improving the world around me.
Welcome to Business Leaders with Soul, a podcast showcasing the change makers and innovators of our times who are ushering in a new age of conscious business. They're authentic, they're original, and their message connects with the people they're here to serve. Be inspired by these futurists and make the difference that you, too, came here to make. And now, here's your host, Lee Aldridge.
Hi, everybody. I'm Lee Aldridge with Soul Story Creative, where we don't tell you who to be, we show the world who you are. And with us today to share her thoughts on the future of conscious business and what that means to her is Lynn Thomas, a pioneer in innovative mental health therapy. In 1999, Lynn Thomas, licensed social worker, co-founded EGALA, the Equine Assisted Growth and Learning Association, providing training and certification in the EGALA model of incorporating horses in psychotherapy. In the 21 years she served as CEO, Lynn built EGALA into a leading worldwide organization and model in the area of mental health through horses, and influenced the rising awareness and the credibility of this approach in the mental health community. Lynn brings a wealth of experience, knowledge, and innovative techniques to mental health wellness, and she's committed to bringing awareness to the powerful role horses and other animals can play in making a difference in countless people's lives all over the world. Now, expanding even more this year, in 2021, Lynn's pioneering focus has moved into creating not one, nope, that wasn't enough, 2 new organizations. The first, Horses for Mental Health, a nonprofit organization focused on advocacy, public awareness, and fundraising to support professionals in uplifting mental health and well-being globally through horses. Now, her second organization is Arenas for Change. At a time when increased emotional safety is so needed in the world, Arenas for Change offers online and hands-on training to individuals, mental health professionals, and organizations who want to deepen their healing practices, grow their reach, and influence their communities. Arch members get the support they need to create transformation, growth, and healing in the lives of those they serve. Lynn, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Lee.
I am just thrilled. You know, we've known each other for a while, and as you know, I have been in amazement for a couple of years now of the work you do. I want to know, and I think our listeners want to know, what is it about emotional safety that is so important to all of us, and where does story come in to the foundation of mental health?
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing about our background and what we're working on. And what we're doing with Arenas for Change is we are training people in a framework of facilitation. So what that means is we are helping and supporting others around us to make change and transformation, whether it be personally or professionally. And when you're talking about emotional safety, basically what we really were looking at about what can we do to deepen and increase emotional safety so that people feel safe to share their stories. Because it's when we share our stories and feel seen and heard that true change and healing can happen. So the emotional safety part is, what does it take to create an environment where people feel safe to be vulnerable, to share who they are, to share their perspectives, and where they feel valued, seen, and heard.
Right. I mean, you bring up something that is just touches all of us. And that is, and it's in my business, I'm asking people to show up authentic. And I'm asking myself to show up authentic. And it is the hardest thing. And it is the vulnerability. And if I think back, when I have been able to get really honest with myself and see a different way of what I've been telling myself about a past interaction or even worse, then I have an opening. I have a chance. And so I see what you mean by creating this foundational feeling of safety. What do you see? How do you cultivate emotional safety? What are you finding that creates that environment that we need?
Well, and as we were exploring that ourselves and always really looking at, well, how can we keep supporting change, learning? How can we support it in a way where it can happen more quickly even? We developed what we call some keystones and what we're calling SEEN. And the SEEN keystones, each of those letters stand for different components of what we feel helps that emotional safety and helps create that. So with SEEN, the S is sense of self. And that's really being aware of what we're bringing into the dynamic. I'm having my own belief systems, my own reactions and responses, and I'm bringing my own stories. And how is that impacting the relationship and who I'm working with? So that's the first thing, is we really look at ourselves and evaluating ourselves and looking at ourselves and understanding ourselves. So that's one thing that helps create an emotionally safe environment, is we're an example and we're doing the work ourselves.
That's kind of a novel idea, isn't it? In a world where we've been taught to, even in the helping professions, to look at ourselves first. It's like, oh no, I've got to help them. Why would that? I've got my knowledge and all of this, but you're turning that around. You're saying, no, we need to look at ourselves first as healers, as mental health professionals, as, business leaders even.
Right, exactly. And that is a vulnerable thing right there. And I like that it was the first keystone, the sense of self, because that's how important that is. And you're right, that's really fits in line with what you were saying earlier about the concept of being authentic, and that we ourselves are authentic, but not just authentic. We have to really understand and know ourselves. We have to know our challenges, the things that trigger us, when we're feeling a certain way. Why are we feeling that way? And what would be the opposite of feeling that way? So we have a bunch of questions that we ask ourselves, that we train facilitators in, what we can look at in ourselves that are going to help support an authentic and emotionally safe environment.
And then the E in SEEN, we've got the second letter. What's that?
So the second one is empowering mindset. And so when you're creating an environment where people feel in control, that they have choices, that their voice matters, that's the empowering mindset. So again, we have some different concepts and things that we ask ourselves and look at in order to create that space where people feel they have choices, they have control, they can be the author of their own stories. And a lot of times we're doing things that we don't realize that we're doing, that actually block that process, that disempower people, even though we're not intending to. Sometimes even when we think we're helping, that's actually disempowering the person that we're working with. So that's that part of SEEN that we're looking at, is the empowering mindset.
I love that. Wow, because we're the author of our own stories. And I think that really serves to break down when we filter everything. So any way I can get to neutrality and looking at something neutral, without the flood of emotion, is always going to give me a better result. I've learned that through my decades. I didn't always respond that way, but so tell us what's the SEE? Now we're at the second E in SEEN.
Yeah. So that second E is externalized story. So we were talking earlier about the concept of working through stories, and that's what we have found is really supports emotional safety is the idea of being able to encourage people. And how do we encourage people to share stories? And we're doing it in a way of not just inviting a story to be shared. The externalized part, that the story is then externalized, is an important part of this, so that it becomes my story becomes not just my story. It's a story. It's a story about characters and locations and elements and plots. And we can talk about our stories from those different levels of emotional distances, where we can look at it from the point of view of an audience, of the point of view of a director, the point of view of a reader and a author, and different points of view and perspectives. So as facilitators, we're supporting the people that we work with in a way that both helps stories to be initiated, to look at our different life situations or work environments or anything that we're going through. When we look at it as a story and look at it from those different perspectives, both as a character in the story and then from outside of that story, it really is a way to work through things in our lives that feels emotionally safe.
Yeah, and so liberating. Wow, to have an avenue and a tool like that to pop out and have those different perspectives. But it's a framework, like there's something for me to feel safe in this, scene container.
Right.
Oh, I love that. Externalizing story. Well, tell us, what's the N?
The N is natural flow. So what that is about is that whatever we're saying or doing builds off what's happening in the moment, so that there's a flow, that it's organic, it feels natural as the story is unfolding or as the process is unfolding. So it's really easy for us to, our minds start thinking about, oh, I want to talk about this other thing. And yet if that other thing doesn't build off what's being talked about now, then it breaks up the flow. And that creates less emotional safety in any context. So the idea is, how can we build or bridge or connect to what's happening moment to moment with the people that we're working with?
Wow. So I've got, all these beautiful words around safe environment, sense of self. What am I coming to it with? And, feeling empowered that my voice matters and I have choice, and being able to look at it from a different perspective and have an organic unfolding. That's amazing. How would people use this? How is this going to help us move forward in this new world where everything is different and we're not sure where we're going? But we know that we're not going back. And we're really relying on it. Just feels like this could be an empowering path, a way to deal with what we're facing. What are your thoughts on that, Lynn?
Yeah, I think that life is very challenging, and there's been some much more unique and intensive challenges that have been happening globally of late that's impacting all of us. And so I think that anyway, whether dealing with personal relationships or in our professional relationships, that we are able to hold space and work with one another in a way that increases that emotional safety, where people feel seen and heard, where we're sharing our stories. And we believe with Arenas for Change, which our shorthand term for Arenas for Change is ARCH. And so with ARCH, we believe that when our stories change, we change. And really, all of our stories are impacting each other's stories. So as we can become more conscious about that and support that journey of our stories unfolding with one another, I feel like then it helps us to go through transitions, go through life's challenges in a way that supports our mental health and emotional health, and supports one another and strengthens one another and builds resilience. So that's really what we're all looking for, that businesses are looking for. How can we support our teams? How can we support our employees? How can we support our customers, where people are feeling that emotional safety to be authentic and vulnerable and share our stories? So that's, I think anything we can do to support that, that's where we started off with this was what we were doing. We're like, well, what can we do next to continue to increase, deepen the change and transformation processes that we all go through? How can we increase emotional safety? How can we enrich and add tools to people's toolboxes as they're working with one another in some sort of facilitator roles, or it could be personal roles? How can we add some tools to the toolbox that support our interactions and support the great work of facilitators that they're already doing?
Right. There's so many people out there doing such good work, and this would just enhance and add more tools to make their careers more rich. But it's also, somebody like me, can I access the scene framework from somewhere as an individual, just if I, just wanted to serve my own clients better, or maybe I want to have a better relationship with my children. This whole thing, this change, this new age of consciousness and conscious business, as I'm talking about it, has really brought to the forefront many different thoughts, beliefs, ways of life into question. I think no one on the planet hasn't been affected. So can somebody like me access this work? Because I'm very intrigued.
Yeah. So we have our website, arenasforchange.com, which is an online, and we also do in-person learning experiences, and we have a community. And so through that, we really wanted to look at making this as accessible, flexible as possible for people to access and learn. I think that is one of the directions that the world is going, that people are looking at how can I do things that fill my soul, fill my passion, help bring good to the world, improve humanity. And so I think businesses that can do that, and that's one of the things we're working to do, is to support that concept and those values of bringing good into the world and making it accessible. So it is a subscription-based platform, and people can come and go as they please, as it fits their needs to learn and be part of a community. And it was interesting as you were talking about that too, with creating these new businesses. You mentioned one is the nonprofit, which is really a heart project there because of the belief that myself and my team and others have that of the power of horses and the impact they can have on mental health. So that's our nonprofit. And then Arch, which is an LLC, our focus there is learning and growing in this facilitation framework and how we can increase emotional safety, which can be applied in environments with horses, with animals, nature. We do it in the office. We do it virtually. So we're doing all sorts of learning experiences through our online platform. And with that, it was interesting as we were starting Arch, we were looking at trying to create our vision, our mission. What are we trying to accomplish? And we were really struggling and getting very blocked about it until we really just focused on our values. What's important to us? Who are we? Who do we want to connect with? We're really looking at connecting with a community who shares our values, who are always looking at learning, who have integrity and different things like that. And that's what we're really focused on. That's the foundation of who we are. And I think a lot of people out there are in that same place of, wait a minute, what do I really want? Who do I want to associate with to keep learning, and who I feel connected to from a values standpoint, that I can keep improving myself and improving the world around me?
Oh, I just love that. It is for everybody. That's what you're saying, is that this is a facilitation style that we can even do for ourselves and others. And it's really almost, this idea of sharing it with as many people as you can. That's the mission. That's your mission. How did you come up with the name Arenas for Change?
When we were creating this, we really wanted to do something that continued that focus of involving horses, but also opened it up to the power of this facilitation framework in lots of different arenas. So we're looking at arenas as a gathering place of fellow facilitators who are looking at working with people and making changes in their lives, as well as the idea that there can be lots of different arenas that we apply SEEN as a framework in. And having said that, we're still, real primary focus still is involving the horses in what we do.
Well, I love that aspect, and I've had my own experience, and I didn't know I was getting equine-assisted therapy at the time, because I was on the other side of the fence just staring at the horses. But, it's really been fascinating to learn how this facilitation style is on the ground, inside the arena or pasture with a herd of horses. And it could be 2 or 1 or 20 horses. How is that emotionally safe?
Well, actually, it is emotionally safe for people because horses provide this space that is not judgmental, and they just do what they do. And because of that, and especially with our framework SEEN that we were talking about, they really help stories to unfold. And one of the things we like to say is they help us tell the untold stories, meaning that they do things that bring out stories we wouldn't have thought of and didn't realize were even there. We also talk about stories as probably the best story editors I've encountered. So the horses start playing out our stories in ways, and then they start taking our stories in directions we don't anticipate. So anyway, that makes it kind of fun and interesting and unpredictable in a way that still feels really safe, even though they're big and powerful animals. That actually plays a role in the stories, their size and their strength, as well as their ability to story edit in ways we don't anticipate.
So do you have a story of somebody walking into the arena and how that editing happened? Like, how does that express?
Well, it was interesting. I was just actually in an experience where the story was regarding the past and the family dynamics of the past. And the horses ended up becoming those family members, including herself. And so she was able to externalize that story. And the horses were way out in the distance and playing out that story. Well, the story shifted because the characters were shifting. And at one point, the horse that was the character of her walked right up to her. And kind of like took the story in a different direction than where she was thinking the story was going to go. And it really ended up becoming about a connection to herself. And then later, another character in the story who hadn't been a primary part of the story, one of her parents, actually then also came close and joined, where then it became a story about her and her mother, whereas prior to that, that's not where the story was going. And it became a really powerful part of the story for it, almost like took it to another level. And that was because of what the horses did. They changed it by what they did.
Right. And then her interpretation and perception opened because it was outside of her. That's amazing. You think the horses are intuitive in that way. Wow.
Yeah, it's hard to know how to explain it, but they do things that we don't expect, and that seemed to fit perfectly for whatever the person is needing in their story.
Right. Well, and then we've got people who actually use dogs. I've seen dog therapy. We have our service dogs. And so it just brings in the whole arena, if I may, of how animals can really open us to the stories that we tell ourselves and help us rewrite it and actually find the answers inside by this externalization of it. That is so great. Where does Arch come in? I know that is your logo, Mark, and then Arch is short for Arenas for Change. Is there a significance with your leadership style and facilitation style in this?
Yeah, we were actually quite excited when we discovered we could turn it into ARCH, our longer name, because arches are symbolic. And from an architectural standpoint, right, they're a framework. They're the strongest structure in the world. They also give some flexibility. They're also symbolic for many cultures around the world. Walking through an arch is usually about new beginnings, new perspectives, and transformations. So, a lot of times, like in weddings, people walk through arches. And so really that fit well with what we're about, which is facilitating change and transformation. We use the arch not only for our logo and our name, which we enjoy, but it was also, we use it as a framework and a language with our clients. And in the scene framework that we use, we incorporate that symbolism as well.
I love that when these symbols show up, when new businesses are emerging their brand story. And when it does, and you feel it and you know it, it doesn't matter if it's a month later or years later, somehow everything still fits. Because while it is a symbol for this new age of conscious business, the strength, the flexibility, the new perspective and transformation, these are all characteristics that we need big time right now. So I love that idea of the arch. But now you see that you've also bring it in to help with the clients in delivering the services, delivering this facilitation style. And that's what I mean. When you emerge a true Soul Story brand, things just click into place like that. And that's what I see for you, is things are just clicking like crazy with the arch and arenas and the animals and the stories. It just all fits together so beautifully.
Yeah, I like that because it has felt like you talk about really connecting to my soul and the people that I work with. This is really being driven by what are our values? What do we want to do? What do we believe in? And it really has been clicking. And the arch has just been a wonderful symbol of all of that coming together. And even how, like I said, how we're communicating with our clients and just the focus on transformation and things that are meaningful for us and the value of our stories and how those can play out. It's been really a neat experience. And so I completely agree that once things really kind of fall in place with what your soul feels, it really does feel like it clicks and connects and goes where we want it to go. Yeah, and it's been neat too because people are reaching out and sharing the meaning that arches are for them. And next thing you know, people are seeing arches all over the place. And so from a branding standpoint, it's been really great as well. It really seems to be something, both stories and arches seem to be something that has been connecting with people.
Yeah, that is fantastic. So you are well on your way. And now I know why you have already, even in your infancy, so many members.
Well, thank you. Yes, we're very grateful for everybody who's joining us on the journey and invite anybody else who wants to come and learn with us and see how you might apply scene in your arena.
Is there, I guess we could send people to arenasforchange.com to learn more. And is that the best way to connect with you, Lynn, and with this work that you're doing?
It is. Yeah, that's a great way to connect with us and learn a bit more about what we're doing. And there's some different resources on the website and brochures you can get, even if you don't want to join the membership side of things. So, we look forward to reaching out and connecting with people who have an interest in how they can increase emotional safety in their environments and support people in change and transition and transformation.
Thank you so much. This has just been fantastic. I appreciate you. I appreciate all the work you're doing, and I'm so grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. Thanks so much.
Thanks for tuning in to Business Leaders with Soul. We hope you enjoyed this discussion into the mind of one of today's authentic thought leaders. We'll be back with another powerful perspective in the next podcast, so be sure to subscribe to get notifications and please share with others. You can connect with us by following Soul Story Creative on LinkedIn or by visiting soulstorycreative.com, where we don't tell you who to be, we show the world who you are. We look forward to seeing you next time.